gives advice to Ken, and Ken gives advice to Brenda, then you can imagine, in some respects, how that might be a kind of flow. And if you can picture the network, where some of these links are connected and some are not, you can begin to imagine that the structure of that network may either enable the flow or impede the flow. So that's why certain structures have either positive or sometimes negative impact on the outcome of the group. And there's two measures of that I'll talk about in a second. These are two of the three we're looking at. The closure and the centrality are within that kind of a paradigm. The other paradigm says it's about embeddedness. And what that says is that the performance of an individual or a group is not just based on the attributes of the individual or the group. In fact, it's also based on the embeddedness of that individual or group in the broader social network. So this is sort of the idea of it's not what you know, it's who you know. That's the general idea. Yes?
Just going back to your point about the sort of map of the social network.
Right.
Is that to be understood as an artifact of communication relationships, or do you see it as something that is prior to, therefore, enabling? In other words, how do you distinguish?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's really both. It's seen as both. You know, the network emerges from some underlying activity, but then the network begins to affect that activity. So there's that. It's like a coevolution. That's how it's seen. And one of the really good examples of embeddedness is that more than likely most of the people in this room got many of their jobs from people who were not in your direct local community. A lot of the studies have shown that jobs are found through these kind of weaker links that extend outside of your own group, but these are maybe people who knew people that connect you. So that's kind of the idea. And so that's the notion of bridging. So bridging, which is one of the three types of social network structure we look at. Bridging says, to what extent are members of the group connected to members of other groups? So that's a fairly simple idea. And the idea is that this supports access to resources that you don't yet have. So whether that's a job, or whether it's knowledge, or whether it's helping in solving a problem, whatever. So bridging lets you access these outside kinds of resources. Now the other two constructs, closure and centrality, are more within the group. So closure now is the extent to which the members of the group are connected to each other through informal ties. So again, in our example here of advice giving, if everybody here regularly gives advice to everybody else, which would be kind of an interesting situation, but that would be full closure. This group would have the maximum closure. And then if nobody gave advice to anybody, then we'd have zero closure. And then anything in between is how you would measure closure. So if there's maybe, let's say, 6 pairs, 6 links out of a total of 100 possibilities, then that's 6 out of 100. That's a closure level or a density. We measure by density of 6%. So closure is this idea. It's sometimes related to cohesiveness. And there, the idea is that you're supporting not the access, but the utilization of resources. So the idea is you already have these resources, maybe in terms of knowledge and so forth. And for you to utilize them, though, you need a certain level of closure. And you can picture it, for this, you need enough links in this network for the information and knowledge to flow around. And you can picture what happens in teams when there's communication in a team. And that's why, the successful teams are those that have high closure, because you get this flow of information and knowledge. So that's the notion of closure.
David?
Yes.
I think it ties back a little bit with Ken's question. The structure of a social network is what you observe empirically. There is no, just to be clear, there is no a priori structure. Compare it, like, for instance, to an organization chart.
Right.
An organization.
Right.
You can point to that even before people start talking about it.
Right.
There is no a priori structure.
No, it's not.
Only what's observed.
It's not planned. It's an emergent property. It's something that happens. It simply emerges. It's not.
So there is no sense of deviating from the structure.
No,
the structure is only what you observe.
Yes, that's right. And the structure can change. Absolutely. But it's very measurable. It's just as measurable as a formal organization structure. So it's not that it's some fuzzy notion. The good thing about social network analysis is we can very explicitly define it and measure it. But you're right, it emerges. It's not, there's not some a priori structure. Did that address the question? Okay, so that's closure, you know, is two of the three. The third social network structure idea is centrality. Now, centrality is the extent to which a particular individual occupies a pivotal position within the social network of the group. And there's different ways to measure centrality. We use the simplest and most popular way, which is called degree. And degree is merely how many links you have. So if you, for example, give advice to 7 of the people in this room, you have a degree of 7. And if you give advice to 9 of the people in this room, you have a degree of 9 divided by how many? Well, no, in this case it's 9, a degree of 9, okay? So we then can say that you have greater centrality than you, because you have 9 and you have 7, relatively speaking, okay? The idea of centrality is, again, looking at this as a network, as a flow, conduits of information and knowledge. If you're in this central pivotal position, you can have greater impact on what happens in this network. So you can be good or you can be bad. You can be helping to move the flow, helping to broker information, or you can be a bottleneck. You can be causing trouble. So we know that centrality can be good or bad, but it certainly, the theory says it makes a difference if you're highly central. In the case of teams, what the team's research has shown is when you look at the leader as the central person, there, yes, it is good. We want leaders who are central. Those tend to be related to effective teams. So those are explaining the 3 constructs. Closure and bridging are also often discussed in the context of what's called social capital theory. And that's just another branch of social network theory. It recognizes kind of the value or the capital, if you will. It's almost like thinking of financial capital or human capital. But they recognize that there is social capital that is in the social network